All right, so we got this movie called The Noel Diary. Yeah, I'm on my Christmas shit right now, so let's get it cracking. So you got this well-known author by the name of Jake Turner. He's written a couple of books. They're like 5 million best copies, bestseller, and all that shit. So he's kind of famous out here in these streets. But he's basically a laid-back kind of dude. Now people go to his book signing, asking for autographs and all this other stuff. This one chick is trying to figure out if he's single or not. He's like, yeah, I gotta go back to my girl Ava, you know what I'm saying, keep her company. When we get back home, we find out Ava's not a girl, it's actually a dog. Basically, he likes being alone because he has a hard time with trust issues and things of that nature. By the way, he had this maid watching his dog or whatever. Then he gets a call from this dude named Matt. He's like a service advisor for his mom, and he just tells him that his mom passed away like last week. Jake didn't know. The reason he didn't know, apparently he hasn't seen her for like 20 years. So basically, he's like the beneficiary on the house or whatever like that. So he's basically going back to the house. Inside the house is all junky. It's got like drinks and beer bottles and everything. So why was she so messed up like this by the time she died? Well, apparently Jacob had a brother by the name of Ben. We found out Ben passed away when he was 7, but we don't really know exactly how. So while he's cleaning up the house, he sees a next door neighbor, lady by the name of Ellie. She used to be kind of like a babysitter to him back in the day, helping him out doing things. So basically while he's got this like dumpster here and he's cleaning up the house, every now and then he turns his back and he keeps seeing this girl across the street. This light-skinned cutie. So we like, who is this? So while he's back in the house doing his cleaning, he starts playing on the piano, which the appraiser said apparently is worth like $40,000. I'm like, it's kind of an antique piano, I get it, but $40,000, like, come on. So while he's doing that, all of a sudden the girl knocks on the door and comes over. Now this lady's name happens to be Rachel. The reason she's coming over here is she found out some information and she's actually trying to find her mom. Now why did she come to Jake's mom's house? Because apparently years ago, her mom used to babysit Jake and Ben when they were little. But she didn't really know her mom's name, she just knows about her last residence. Because when she was looking for her, obviously they couldn't disclose that information, but they could disclose information of places that she's been. So basically she's really not trying to intrude. She said she'll sit there and chill in her car and then she's eating like this little power bar. And he's like, look man, you want to go out there and get something to eat? So he takes her to this Italian restaurant. Then we find out she could actually speak French. So apparently while he's getting to know her, he learns that she could speak like 4 different languages. In fact, she's actually putting her application to try to be a translator for the United Nations. So they eat, they end up going back to the house. She sees the piano and wants him to play a song. Hesitant at first, he ends up playing a song, but she ends up playing a song she actually knows and she starts singing along the melody. I'm like, wow. So between all this, we find out she actually does have a boyfriend by the name of Alan, and his job is being like a tax attorney. So anyway, he allows her to spend the night so they can talk to Ellie the next day. They can figure out some information about her mom. Now, Ellie doesn't remember Rachel's mom's name, but she says, you know who knows anything about it? Your father, Jake. Now, the thing is, Jake hasn't talked to his father in about 30 to 35 years. In fact, his father left when the incident happened with his brother, Ben. So what really happened to Ben? I'll tell you in a minute. So Ellie knows his last place of residence is like somewhere in Vermont. So Rachel does a little bit of convincing for Jake to try to, talk to his father and finally head all this stuff out. And then she can find a way to figure out where her mom is. Jake's hesitant at first, but then he decides, all right, as long as Rachel's with me. So they're heading to Vermont and all this snow. So they just stopped at this gas station to probably get something to eat. She asks Jake to hand her the wallet. She goes to the bag, gets his wallet, but then this diary falls out. She looks through the diary in a couple pages. Turns out it's actually her mom's diary. And she finds out her mom's name is Noel. Roll credits. Because that's why it's called the Noel Diary. So there you go. Turns out she finds out her real name is not Rachel. It's actually Angelica. So if you couldn't tell by now, Rachel's being raised by her foster parents. Where was her real dad at? They never mentioned that. So along this trip, Rachel has no idea who Jake is and how famous he is. She just thinks he's a small-time writer or whatever like that. But I guess she's seen somebody talking to him, so she did her research and figured out what he was. I was like, okay. She's like, oh yeah, you some big-time author. You just sold like 5 million copies of books. But he brushes it off because he's real humble. So on this trip, they stop and get something to eat. But the waitress tells them there's a snowstorm coming. It's like, you have 0 chance of getting through the snowstorm today. So they get themselves a hotel, and it's like 2 rooms, but they're closer together. Well, while he's getting a hotel, Rachel goes over to this bookstore, and she asks him about Jake Turner books, and she recommends the first book that he ever wrote. So without his knowledge, she's reading one of his books. Now, a lot of his books are based on real characters, but Ellie is like one of the few people that actually knows that. And some of the people in the town. So anyway, they get into their rooms. He's making sure she's okay. She's like, yeah, I'm good. Because she was talking out loud. But the door was cracked, so he ends up looking through the crack and sees her reading one of his books. So she's like, all right. He calls her out on it the next day. It's like, yeah, she's like, you know what? Book's pretty good. Now, I know she stayed up all night, and I'm an avid reader, but you're going to sit there and tell me you read that whole book in one night? I can't even read 40 pages before my eyes get woozy. You mean to tell me you read that whole goddamn book in one night? Really? I know it's a movie. Anyway, on the drive, she starts reading more of the diary. She sees some things in there, and she's like, you got to pull over. I need to get some air. And while he's making sure she's good out there in the cold, they kind of almost have a moment. But then his dog, Ava, ends up seeing a rabbit and starts chasing after it. She calls Ava Turner right back over, and then Ava comes right back. He's like, damn, okay. She controlled your dog when you couldn't. Hey, what's good? So then they're driving, they finally get to Vermont, and now he's got to go confront his dad. She gives him the courage to stand up to it, you know what I'm saying? Go ahead and face your fears and whatnot. Dad didn't answer the door first. He must not have been home. So they slept outside in the car the whole night. Next morning, he hears somebody chopping wood. So he goes around the back and there he is. He sees his dad, Scott Turner. He was chopping down a tree, so he helps his dad carry the tree in the house. His dad tries to apologize, but it's like, it's kind of like no use after like 30 some odd years. He doesn't think he can handle it, so he walks out the house. Rachel does everything she can to convince him to go back in the house. It's like, look, you only got one dad. I get it. So he ends up going back in the house. Now they're trying to get everything together, doing all of this bonding and whatnot. And then Scott talks about what really happened with Ben. Now, here's the story. Ben died when he was 7 years old, right? Now, they had this big tree out in front of their house they used to have, and they always used to decorate it and stuff. Scott actually built up boards on the tree as like stepping stones so he could like, climb the tree or whatnot. Nobody at this time was watching Ben while he was climbing the tree. He gets up to the top. Unfortunately, a tree branch breaks, and he falls off the tree. Done deal, dead as shit. And that's basically how Ben died. Their parents tried to stay together, but eventually they weren't getting along with anything. It's like turmoil. And Dad felt like he didn't want to take Jake away from Mom because she was already suffering. So that was when he decided to leave. And he's been gone all this time. So basically they're trying to find ways to forgive each other. Him missing out all this time, his father leaving, all this stuff. I'm thinking to myself the whole time, Rachel and Ava are still in the goddamn car. I'm like, dude, you just gonna leave him out there? But Rachel's just happy that they had bonding time. I was like, there was a lot of time that passed between them. It went from day to night. I'm like, dude, they just sit in the fucking car. So anyway, they finally invite Ava and Rachel all in the house. And then she gets some information about her mom. Scott had these notes for like all these years. Turns out Noel got married to some dude named Christian Hayden. So she basically took on the last name. So you're looking for Noel Hayden. The place she lived was somewhere in Greenwich. So that's basically going to be the next destination to find her mom. While they're in the road trip, they got to get to a hotel. This time, there's only one room left for both of them. So they get to the hotel, they get food, they wine and dining each other. And then Rachel tells Jake a secret. She's like, guess what? Today's my birthday. Then she turns on some music. They get to dancing. Everything is aligned for him to clap cheeks. And it gets to a point where she kisses him, and that's exactly what happens. Next morning, Jake wakes up and we're like, where the heck is Rachel? Turns out Rachel left this long letter next to the bed. Basically, the bottom line of the letter is she wasn't ready to see her mom just yet. She's having conflicting emotions about her and Jake. She's thinking to herself, me and Alan are supposed to be engaged. So basically, she ended up catching a cab back to her house, to her foster parents' house. So you're thinking to yourself, at this point, Jake is about to go home, but instead, he goes over to the St. Percy Hospital. And he goes over there to the nurse's station. We're like, what is he doing at the hospital? Turns out he's actually looking for Noel, and we find out she actually works at the hospital. She's actually a nurse. Guess who plays Noel? Essence Atkins. I'm like, what? So they see each other, they catch up and everything like that. Now my question is this, in the information that his father Scott gave him, the letters had things about her being married in a place of residence. It didn't say anything about her work area. Did he just like Google and figure it out just because he finally got a full name? Like, well, anyway. He goes to see herself, catches up, tells her that he actually met her daughter, and she just wants her to be happy and all that stuff. Noel says she really would love to see her daughter one day. Now I'm thinking to myself, Jake, did you tell her where she lived at? Maybe Rachel's not ready to see her mom. Who knows? Now Rachel's celebrating Christmas with her foster family. She keeps getting calls from Jake, but she keeps not responding because apparently Alan's supposed to be coming over soon. So then she goes in the other room. She finally responds to Jake. Then all of a sudden she hears Ava barking. So she looks out the window like, oh shit, Jake is actually in front of the house. So he's like, tell me you don't love me and I'll go. She tells him that, and then he finally decides to leave. So in between all this, Ellie was trying to find love and stuff like that. Jake had set Ellie up on a date, fixing her Tinder profiles or whatever. She ends up finding a dude. She was clapping cheeks. That's her main boo. But anyway, Jake ends up going back to his mom's house. Now the thing about Jake with his father, because he was mad because he never received any letters or whatever like that. His father said he sent letters and stuff like that all the time. So when he went back to the house, cleaning out the rest of his mom's stuff, he got this big old box, right? And this box contained all the letters that Scott wrote to his son there for years. Some heartwarming stuff. Ellie ends up coming over with a new boyfriend and asking if he wanted to stick around, for Christmas dinner and stuff like that. But he's like, I gotta go on the road. The roads are getting slick, all this other stuff. So while he's packing these letters up and putting them in the car and basically about to dip out, he looks across the street and all of a sudden Rachel's standing across the street. So obviously assuming this, she's chosen Jake over Alan. And that's pretty much the end of the movie. Now I'm thinking to myself, Rachel, you were doing all this with Jake to help him with his father, but really try to find your mom. And knowing all the information you had, you still didn't go see your mom. What was the purpose of your journey? To find your mom or to ironically find true love? You're just happy with the fact of your foster parents. Bottom line, a Christmas movie for you. There you go. The Noel Diary on Netflix. Check it out.